I used to think the worst thing a man could do was destroy your family. I was wrong. The worst thing he can do is look at you like he never wanted to hurt you at all. I was sent to work under Marcus Hale, the man responsible for everything my family lost. I hated him. What I didn't expect was the way he already knew my name, or the terrifying realization that the man I was supposed to despise was the only one who had ever tried to protect me. I should have known the moment I saw his name on the contract. Marcus Hale. 2 words that had lived in my mouth like ash for 6 years. 2 words my mother whispered in her sleep during those first months after everything fell apart. 2 words my brother spat like a curse before he stopped speaking to me altogether. But I needed this job. God, I needed this job. So I signed the papers with hands that barely shook, told myself I was stronger than my history, and showed up at Hale Industries on a Monday morning in September with my shoulders back and my expression carefully blank. The building was glass and steel, all clean lines and money. The kind of place that made you feel small just by existing inside it. I gave my name at the front desk. The receptionist smiled, professional and distant, and directed me to the 42nd floor. Executive offices. Of course. The elevator ride up felt like descending, like gravity was pulling me somewhere I couldn't escape. I watched the numbers climb and tried to remember how to breathe. I'd seen pictures of him, in business magazines mostly, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, always photographed in that same way powerful men are, arms crossed, expression unreadable, eyes that seemed to look through the camera rather than at it. He'd been 47 in the last photo I'd seen. That made him 53 now. Old enough to be my father. The thought settled in my chest, heavy and wrong. The elevator doors opened. A woman in her 50s stood waiting, elegant in gray wool and pearls. Ella Morrissey? Yes. I'm Karen, Mr. Hale's executive assistant. Welcome to Hale Industries. Her smile was warm but brief. He's expecting you. She led me down a hallway lined with abstract art, our footsteps muffled by carpet that probably cost more than my rent. Every door we passed was closed. Every surface was spotless. It felt like a place where nothing messy was allowed to exist. Karen stopped at the last door on the left. She knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. Mr. Hale, Miss Morrissey is here. Send her in. His voice was exactly what I'd expected. Low, measured. The kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to command a room. I stepped inside. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, morning light pouring across dark wood and leather furniture. Everything was organized with a precision that felt intentional, controlled. And behind the desk, rising slowly to his feet, was Marcus Hale. He was taller than I'd imagined, broader through the shoulders. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and his hair was dark, with silver threading through at the temples. But it was his face that stopped me. Handsome, yes, but that wasn't the word for it. Carved. Severe. The kind of face that looked like it had forgotten how to soften. And his eyes. Gray, like winter. They locked onto mine, and something flickered across his expression. Something I couldn't name. Recognition, maybe. Or something darker. Ms. Morrissey. He didn't offer his hand. Please, sit. I moved toward the chair across from his desk, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking my movement. I sat, crossed my legs, folded my hands in my lap. I would not let him see me shake. He remained standing for a moment longer, studying me with an intensity that felt almost physical. Then he lowered himself back into his chair, slowly, like a man who'd learned to move with deliberate care. "I've reviewed your credentials," he said. "You're overqualified for this position." "I'm aware." "Then why apply?" "Because no one else would hire me. Because your son made sure of that." I kept my voice level. "I'm looking for stability. Your company has an excellent reputation." "Stability." He repeated the word like he was testing its weight. His eyes never left mine. "You understand this role will require long hours, direct collaboration with me on sensitive projects, discretion." "I understand." "You'll have access to confidential information, financial records, strategic plans. If I have any reason to doubt your integrity, you won't." The words came out sharper than I intended. His eyebrow lifted, barely, and I realized I'd interrupted him. Something almost like amusement touched the corner of his mouth. It was gone before I could be sure. "I appreciate confidence, Ms. Morrissey. But in this office, trust is earned, not assumed." I met his gaze and didn't look away. "Then I'll earn it." Silence stretched between us. He leaned back in his chair, still watching me with that same unsettling focus. I had the strange sense that he was looking for something, that he already knew what he'd find. "Your start date is next Monday," he said finally. "Karen will coordinate your onboarding. You'll report directly to me." "Understood." "One more thing." He stood, and I realized the meeting was over. "My son, Julian, works in our acquisitions department. You may encounter him. I expect all interactions to remain professional." My stomach dropped. Julian. God, I'd almost forgotten. Almost let myself believe I could do this without facing him. Marcus was watching me again, that sharp gaze missing nothing. "Is that going to be a problem, Ms. Morrissey?" I stood, forcing my legs to stay steady. "No, no problem." "Good." He moved around the desk, and suddenly he was close. Too close. I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke. Could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the gray scattered through the dark of his hair. He was looking at me like he was memorizing my face. "Welcome to Hale Industries," he said quietly. Then he extended his hand. I stared at it for half a second too long. Then I reached out and let his fingers close around mine. His hand was warm, calloused in a way I didn't expect. The grip was firm but brief, and when he released me, I felt the absence of it like cold air against skin. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." I turned and walked out before my hands could start shaking. The first week, I barely saw him. Karen kept me busy with paperwork, system training, introductions to department heads whose names I forgot almost immediately. Everyone was polite, professional. No one asked questions. No one seemed to know who I was. That, at least, was a relief. On Wednesday, I saw Julian in the hallway. He was laughing with a colleague, head thrown back, perfectly white teeth flashing in a face that still looked exactly like it had 6 years ago. Handsome, charming. The kind of man who'd never had to work for anything in his life. He didn't see me. I ducked into the nearest office and waited until his voice faded down the corridor. My hands were shaking again. By the end of the first week, I'd started to relax. Maybe this would work. Maybe I could do my job, collect my paycheck, and avoid both Hail Men entirely. Then, Monday morning arrived, and Karen called me into Marcus's office. "He's requested you join him for the quarterly review meeting," she said. 9 a.m., conference room B. Bring your notes on the Brennan account. My notes on the Brennan account were 3 pages of barely organized chaos. I'd been trying to make sense of the file for 2 days, but the numbers didn't add up, and every time I thought I'd found the discrepancy, I lost it again. I walked into conference room B at 8:58 with my tablet clutched against my chest and my stomach in knots. Marcus was already there. He stood at the head of the table, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, reading something on his phone. He glanced up when I entered. "Ms. Morrissey." "Mr. Hale." "Close the door." I did. Then I moved to the chair nearest the door, as far from him as I could reasonably justify. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Sit here." He gestured to the chair on his right. I hesitated, then obeyed. He set his phone down and looked at me directly. "How are you settling in?" "Fine. Everyone's been very helpful." "Karen tells me you've been staying late." "I want to make sure I understand the accounts thoroughly." Something shifted in his expression. "Thoroughness is good. Burning out in your second week is not." He paused. "If you need help, ask." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He studied me for another beat, then pulled a file from the stack in front of him. "The Brennan account. Walk me through your assessment." I opened my tablet and tried not to let my fingers tremble on the screen. For the next 40 minutes, he questioned every assumption I'd made. Not cruelly, not dismissively, but with a precision that left no room for error. He found the gaps in my analysis within seconds, pointed out connections I'd missed, restructured my entire approach with a few carefully chosen words. It should have been humiliating. Instead, it was clarifying. He didn't make me feel stupid. He made me feel like I was learning. "Better," he said, when I'd finished reworking the projections. "But you're still missing the variable cost structure. Look at supplier contracts from Q2. You'll find your answer there." "I will. Thank you." He leaned back in his chair, and for the first time that morning, some of the intensity left his posture. He looked tired. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. "You have good instincts," he said quietly. "You second-guess yourself too much." The observation landed somewhere soft and undefended. "I'm still learning your systems," I said. "I'm not talking about the systems." Our eyes met, and the air in the room changed, thinned. I didn't know what he saw when he looked at me, but whatever it was made his jaw tighten. He stood abruptly. "That's all for today. Send me your revised analysis by end of business." I gathered my things quickly, grateful for the dismissal. I was halfway to the door when he spoke again. "Ms. Morrissey." I turned. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, shoulders tight, expression unreadable. "Yes?" "If you see Julian," he said slowly, "and he speaks to you in any way that makes you uncomfortable, I want to know." My heart stopped. Why would he? "I'm serious." His voice was low, edged with something I couldn't identify. "If he approaches you, if he says anything, I want to know immediately." I stared at him, trying to understand. He knew. Somehow, he knew. I can handle Julian, I said quietly. That's not what I asked. The weight of his gaze was unbearable. I looked away first. I'll let you know, I whispered. Good. I left before he could say anything else. 3 weeks in, Julian cornered me in the break room. I'd been avoiding him successfully. Different floors, different schedules, but I'd stayed late to finish a report, and the building was mostly empty when I went to make coffee. He was leaning against the counter when I walked in. Ella Morrissey, he said, smiling. I heard you were working here. Couldn't quite believe it. I didn't smile back. Julian, it's been what, 6 years? About that. He stepped closer, still handsome, still wearing that easy charm like armor. You look good, he said. Really good. I moved past him to the coffee maker. I'm working. Excuse me. Come on, Ella. We're adults. We can be civil. I poured coffee I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. I am being civil. Are you? He tilted his head, studying me. You've been avoiding me. I've been doing my job. Working for my father. He said it like it was amusing. That must be interesting. I set the coffee pot down carefully. Is there something you need, Julian? Because I have work to finish. His smile faded. You know, I always wondered what happened to you after everything fell apart. My chest tightened. You wondered. I turned to face him fully. You ruined my family's reputation, destroyed my mother's career, and you wondered what happened to me? That wasn't personal, Ella. It was business. It was cruel. It was necessary. He shrugged. Your family was in the way. Dad needed that contract. I made it happen. The casualness of it. The complete lack of remorse. I wanted to throw the coffee in his face. Instead, I picked up my mug and walked toward the door. Ella. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Does Dad know? Julian asked quietly. About us? My pulse hammered. There was no us, Julian. There was you lying to me, using me. That's not an us. I'm just saying. His voice dropped lower. It might be awkward if he found out. You and me. The timing of everything. It was a threat. Subtle, but a threat. I turned slowly. Are you trying to intimidate me? I'm trying to make sure we understand each other. We do. I met his eyes and let him see exactly how much I hated him. Stay away from me. I left before he could respond. I went straight to my desk, sat down, stared at my computer screen without seeing it. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to press them flat against the desk. Does Dad know? Marcus didn't know. Couldn't know. If he did. Ms. Morrissey. I jerked my head up. Marcus stood in the doorway of my cubicle, jacket gone, tie loosened. He looked at me for one long second, then at my hands, still pressed flat against the desk. My office, he said quietly. Now. I followed him down the empty hallway. He held the door open, waited until I was inside, then closed it behind us. Sit. I sat. He moved to the windows, standing with his back to me, hands in his pockets. The city sprawled below us, lights beginning to blink on as evening fell. What did he say to you? My throat was dry. Who? Don't. He turned. What did Julian say? I looked down at my lap. Nothing important. Ella. Hearing my first name from his mouth felt like a physical touch. I swallowed. He reminded me that he was the reason my family lost everything. He made sure I knew it was his decision, not yours. Marcus's jaw clenched. What else? I hesitated. What else? He repeated, voice harder now. He asked if you knew. About. I couldn't finish the sentence. About what? I looked up at him. His eyes were storm gray and unreadable. He and we dated. Briefly. 6 years ago. Right before. My voice broke. Right before everything happened. He said it might be awkward if you found out. Marcus went very still. He threatened you. No, he threatened you, Marcus said again, each word precise and cold. In my building, while you work for me. He pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed. Security, I need Julian Hale escorted from the building. Immediately. Yes. Effective now. He paused. Inform him his access has been revoked, pending further discussion. No, I don't care. Do it. He ended the call and set the phone down on his desk with controlled care. I stared at him. You can't. I can. He looked at me. And I did. He's your son. He's a liability. Marcus moved closer, stopping a few feet away. And he knows better than to threaten people under my protection. Under his protection. The words settled in my chest, warm and impossible. I don't need protection, I said quietly. Perhaps not. But you have it regardless. We looked at each other across the space between us. Something unspoken hung in the air, heavy and charged. He broke eye contact first. Go home, Ella. It's late. I stood, legs unsteady. Thank you. Don't thank me. His voice was rough. I should have handled Julian years ago. I wanted to ask what he meant. Wanted to understand the guilt that lived in the tight set of his shoulders. But I didn't. I just nodded and left. After that night, something changed. Marcus started requesting my presence in meetings I shouldn't have been included in. Executive briefings, acquisition negotiations, strategy sessions with department heads. At first, I thought it was mentorship. Then I realized it was something else. He was keeping me close, where he could see me, where Julian couldn't reach me. I should have resented it. I didn't. 6 weeks into my employment, Marcus asked me to accompany him to a dinner meeting with a potential client. It's at Meridian, Karen told me when she delivered the message. 7 p.m., business formal. A car will pick you up at 6:30. I almost said no, but this was my job. This was what I'd been hired for. So I went home, showered, and pulled out the one decent dress I owned. Black. Simple. The neckline was modest, but the fabric clung in ways that made me self-conscious. The car arrived exactly on time. Meridian was the kind of restaurant where the host knew your name before you gave it, where the lighting was low and the music was soft, and every table cost more than my weekly salary. Marcus was already seated when I arrived. He looked up as the host led me over, and something flickered across his face. something that made my skin feel warm. He stood. Ella. Mr. Hale. Marcus. He pulled out my chair. We're not in the office. I sat carefully, hyper-aware of his hand on the back of my chair, the heat of him standing close. Our client is running late, he said, as he returned to his seat. Traffic. That's fine. A waiter appeared with wine. Marcus ordered without looking at the menu, then turned his attention back to me. You look... He stopped, cleared his throat. Professional. It should have been a compliment. It sounded like something else. Thank you. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just weighted. I studied him across the table. In the low light, the silver in his hair was more pronounced. The lines at the corners of his eyes deeper. He looked older here, tired, beautiful, in a way that had nothing to do with youth. The thought arrived unbidden and unwelcome. Can I ask you something? I said, before I could stop myself. He lifted his eyes to mine. Yes? Why did you hire me? You were qualified. I was overqualified, and there are a dozen people more qualified than me who would have taken this job. He reached for his water glass, taking a slow sip, buying time. You needed it, he said finally. That's not a reason to hire someone. It was reason enough. I leaned forward. Marcus. Why? He set his glass down and looked at me directly. The weight of his gaze was almost unbearable. Because I owed you. My breath caught. You don't owe me anything. I do. His voice was quiet, certain. I've owed you for 6 years. I don't understand. I know. He looked like he wanted to say more, like the words were there, pressing against his teeth, but something held them back. The client arrived before I could push further. The dinner lasted 2 hours. Marcus was charming, persuasive, completely in control. He guided the conversation with a skill that made it look effortless. And every so often, his attention would shift to me. A glance, a subtle signal to contribute. He made space for me at that table. Made sure I was seen. By the end of the night, we'd secured the contract. The client left. Marcus and I remained, the table between us now scattered with empty glasses and the remains of dessert. You were good tonight, he said. You didn't need me here. I did. The honesty in his voice made me look away. Marcus. Come with me. He stood and offered his hand. I stared at it, at the strong fingers, the broad palm. Where? Somewhere quieter. I shouldn't have taken his hand. I took it anyway. He led me out through a side door, down a hallway I hadn't noticed before. We emerged onto a rooftop terrace, empty except for a few scattered tables and strings of soft lights overhead. The city stretched out before us, glittering and vast. Marcus released my hand and moved to the railing. I followed, standing beside him with a careful foot of space between us. I used to come here, he said quietly. Years ago, when I needed to think. About what? Choices I'd made. Ones I couldn't take back. I looked at his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. What choice? I asked softly. He didn't answer for a long time. Then, 6 years ago, I was negotiating the Sutherland merger, biggest deal of my career. Everything depended on it. The company's future, hundreds of jobs, my reputation. He paused. Your family owned a competing firm. Smaller, but positioned to win the same contract. My heart started pounding. Julian convinced me that if Morrissey Industries secured Sutherland, we'd lose everything. He had evidence, fabricated, I found out later, that your family was engaging in unethical practices, bribery, fraud. Oh, God. I believed him, Marcus continued, voice flat. I authorized a full investigation, leaked information to the press, destroyed your family's credibility before they could defend themselves. My hands gripped the railing. By the time I realized what Julian had done, it was too late. Your mother had resigned. Your father's health had collapsed. Your brother stopped speaking to me. I finished, barely audible. Because I was the one who told Julian about our bid. I trusted him. He used me. Marcus turned to look at me finally. His eyes were dark, with something that looked with agony. I know. You knew? All this time, you knew Julian manipulated me? I found out 2 years after, when I finally looked at the evidence properly, saw what he'd done, how he'd used you. He drew a breath. I tried to fix it, offered your mother her position back, offered your father a settlement. They refused, told me they wanted nothing from me. Tears burned behind my eyes.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because you hated me, rightfully. And his voice roughened. I deserved that hatred. So you hired me. Why? Guilt? Yes. He didn't hesitate. And because the moment you walked into my office, I recognized you. From where? His hand lifted, hesitated, then fell back to his side. You probably don't remember. You were 21, at a charity gala with your parents. You wore a blue dress. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. You laughed at something your father said, and I thought. He stopped. What? I thought you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The words hung between us, stark and impossible. I couldn't breathe. Marcus. I know. He stepped back, putting distance between us. I know. You were too young. You are too young. And I destroyed your family. There is no world where... He cut himself off. I hired you because I owed you. Because I could give you this at least. A job, stability, protection from Julian. That's all? He looked at me with something raw and honest in his eyes. No, he said quietly. That's not all. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed and replayed his words, his voice, the look on his face when he said I was beautiful. He'd carried guilt for 6 years. He'd recognized me from a single glance at a gala I barely remembered. He'd been protecting me this entire time. And I'd hated him. Still hated him, maybe, for not stopping Julian sooner, for believing the lies in the first place. But there was something else now, too. Something I didn't have a name for. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Marcus was already there. I could see him through the glass wall of his office, standing at his desk, reading something with that familiar intensity. I knocked. He looked up, went very still. Come in. I closed the door behind me. We need to talk. I know. He set down the papers. I overstepped last night. If you want to resign, I don't. His eyebrows lifted slightly. I moved closer to his desk, but didn't sit. I need to know something. Anything. When you look at me, what do you see? He was quiet for a long moment. Ella, please, just honestly. He exhaled slowly. I see someone who survived something that would have broken most people. Someone brilliant. Someone... He stopped. His jaw tightened. Someone I have no right to look at the way I do. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. And how do you look at me? Like I want things I can't have. His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. Like I'm fighting myself every time you're in the same room. I should have walked away. I moved closer instead. What if I'm fighting the same thing? He went rigid. Don't. Don't what? Don't say things like that. Don't make this harder than it already is. Why? I stopped on the opposite side of his desk. Because you feel guilty? Because I'm supposed to hate you? Because I'm 25 years older than you. The words came out harsh. Because I destroyed your family. Because every reason this is wrong outweighs any reason it could ever be right. You didn't destroy my family. Julian did. I enabled him. I believed him. That's the same thing. It's not. Ella. He looked at me with something desperate in his eyes. You don't want this. You think you do, but you don't. He gestured vaguely at himself. I'm too old, too damaged. I've made too many mistakes. You're not damaged. You don't know that. Then let me know. I leaned forward, hands on his desk. Let me decide what I want. I can't. Why? Because if I let myself want you, I won't be able to stop. His voice cracked. And you deserve better than that. Better than me. I moved around the desk. He tracked my movement, but didn't step away. We were close now. Close enough that I could see the pulse in his throat. The way his hands curled into fists at his sides. What if I don't want better? I said softly. You should. But I don't. He closed his eyes. Ella, please. Please what? Please don't make me do this. I reached up, slowly, and touched my fingertips to his jaw. He flinched, but didn't pull away. I'm not making you do anything, I whispered. I'm here. And I'm telling you that I feel this too. Whatever this is. He opened his eyes, looked at me with such raw longing that it stole my breath. Then he stepped back. I need you to leave, he said hoarsely. Marcus, now. Please. Before He turned away, hands braced on his desk. Just go. So I did. But I didn't go far. The tension between us became unbearable. Every meeting, every accidental touch, every glance held a second too long. He was so careful, so controlled. But I saw the cracks. The way his eyes followed me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his voice softened when he said my name. the way he found excuses to keep me close. 2 months after that night on the terrace, he asked me to accompany him on a business trip. Chicago, Karen said. 3 days, conference at the Waldorf. He wants you there for the Brennan presentation. I should have said no. I said yes.
This was a mistake. Marcus knew it the moment Ella walked into the hotel lobby, overnight bag slung over her shoulder, hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger than she was. Too young. Always too young. But God, the way she moved, the way she looked at him with those dark eyes that saw too much. He was 53 years old. He'd built an empire. He'd survived a marriage that ended in cold silence and a son who'd inherited all his worst qualities. He knew better. He knew better, and yet here he was, checking into a hotel with a woman he had no business wanting. A woman who worked for him. A woman whose family he'd destroyed. A woman who looked at him like he was worth redemption. "We have meetings starting at 8 a.m., he told her in the elevator. Professional. Distant. "I've reserved a conference suite. We can review the presentation tonight, after dinner." "Of course." Her voice was steady, but when he glanced at her, he saw the pulse at her throat beating fast. She felt it too. This thing between them, this impossible, wrong thing. The elevator doors opened on the 23rd floor. "Your room is down the hall," he said. "Mine is the opposite direction." Deliberate. Safe. She nodded. "I'll see you at 7 for dinner?" 7. She walked away, and he forced himself not to watch her go.
Dinner was torture. We sat across from each other in the hotel restaurant, discussing projections and market analysis, and all I could think about was the way his hands moved when he talked, the way his voice dropped when he said something he meant, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. After, we went to the conference suite. He'd ordered coffee. We spread the presentation across the table and started working. It should have been normal. It wasn't. Every time he leaned close to point at something, I felt the heat of him. Every time our hands brushed, electricity sang up my arm. By 10 p.m., the presentation was finished. Neither of us moved to leave. "That should be strong enough," Marcus said quietly. "You did good work." We did good work. He looked at me. The conference suite was dim, just one lamp burning in the corner. It made shadows across his face, sharpened the angles of his jaw. "Ella, don't." I stood. "Don't tell me to leave. Don't tell me this is wrong. I know all the reasons. I've heard them." "Then why are you still here?" "Because I don't care about the reasons." He rose slowly. "You should." "But I don't." We stood on opposite sides of the table, the presentation scattered between us. "I can't give you what you deserve," he said roughly. "You don't know what I deserve." "I know it's not this. Not me." "What if I get to decide that?" He closed his eyes. "You're killing me." "Good." I moved around the table. "Because you've been killing me for months." "Ella." I stopped in front of him, close enough to touch, but not touching. "Tell me you don't want this," I whispered. "Tell me you don't think about me. Tell me you don't lie awake at night wishing things were different." His jaw clenched. "I can't." "Then stop fighting it." "I can't do that either." "Why?" "Because I'm trying to protect you." "From what?" "From me." His voice broke. "From the guilt you'll feel when you realize what you've done. From the judgment. From, I don't care about any of that." "You will." "No." I lifted my hand, slowly, and placed it over his heart. I won't. He sucked in a breath. His hand came up, covering mine, pressing it harder against his chest. You feel that? I whispered. You're not made of stone, Marcus. I should be. But you're not. We stared at each other. His heart pounded beneath my palm. Then he moved, not toward me, toward the door. I need you to go back to your room, he said, voice strained. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret. I won't regret it. I will. He turned. His eyes were dark, tortured. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Not because I don't want you, but because you deserve better than a man who's broken, who's failed everyone he's ever— You didn't fail me. I destroyed your family. My family lied to me about what happened. They let me believe you were the villain, but you weren't. You were just trying to save your company. And Julian— My voice hardened. Julian manipulated both of us. That doesn't absolve me. Maybe not, but it changes things. He shook his head slowly. Even if it does, even if you've forgiven me, that doesn't change the fact that I'm too old for you, that people will see us and make assumptions, that your reputation— I don't care about my reputation. Well, I do. His voice was fierce now. I care about what happens to you. I care about protecting you from the kind of scrutiny that comes with— He gestured between us. This. Then protect me. I stepped closer. But don't push me away. Ella, please. The word hung in the air. He looked at me for one long, aching moment. Then he closed the distance between us and kissed me. Chapter 7. His mouth was gentle, careful, like he was afraid I might break. But I didn't want careful. I pressed closer, fingers curling into the front of his shirt, and kissed him harder. He made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and surrender, and his hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones, fingers threading into my hair. He kissed me like I was precious, like I was something he'd been waiting for, like he'd been holding himself back for so long that now, with permission, he didn't know how to stop. I didn't want him to stop. His hands slid down to my waist, pulling me flush against him. I could feel the hard planes of his chest, the warmth of him through his shirt. Could feel the way his breathing had gone unsteady. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. This is a mistake, he whispered. I don't care. You should. But I don't. He kissed me again, softer this time. Then he stepped back, hands falling away. Go to your room. Marcus, please. His voice was rough. If you stay, I won't be able to. I need you to go. I studied his face, saw the war himself behind his eyes. Okay, I whispered. I turned toward the door. Ella. I looked back. He stood in the dim light, hands at his sides, looking at me with such naked longing that it hurt. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. I don't know how to do this, how to be— He stopped. How to be what you need. Just be honest. That's all I need. Then honestly? His voice dropped. I've wanted you since the moment you walked into my office, and every day since has been torture. Heat flooded through me. Then why are you sending me away? Because if I don't, I won't stop at kissing you, and you're not ready for what comes after. How do you know? Because I'm barely ready for it. He exhaled slowly. Go, Ella. Let me figure out how to do this right. So I went. But as I walked down the hallway to my room, I could still feel the ghost of his hands on my waist, still taste him on my lips. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. The next morning, he knocked on my door at 7 a.m. I opened it to find him standing there, suit already perfect, expression carefully neutral. Morning. Morning. I stepped back to let him in. He stayed in the doorway. The presentation is at 9. I thought we could have breakfast first. Discuss strategy. It was so professional, so controlled, but his eyes betrayed him. Strategy, I repeated softly. Yes. I moved closer. Is that what we're calling it now? Ella. I reached up and straightened his tie. You have excellent strategy, Mr. Hale. His hand caught mine. Don't. Don't what? Don't make this harder than it already is. You kissed me last night. I know. And now you're pretending it didn't happen. I'm not pretending. His grip tightened on my hand. I'm trying to be professional. We're here for work. And after work? He was quiet for a long moment. After work, we need to talk. Really talk. About what this means. What happens next. Okay. He released my hands slowly. Get your things. We'll have breakfast downstairs. The presentation went perfectly. Marcus was brilliant, commanding the room with that quiet authority that made people listen. And when he introduced me, when he let me handle the financial projections, he made it clear that I was an equal participant, not his assistant, his colleague. After, the client shook both our hands. Impressive work, Ms. Morrissey. Hale is lucky to have you. Marcus's eyes met mine. I know. We flew back to New York that evening. The company jet was small, private, leather seats and soft lighting. Marcus sat across from me, laptop open but ignored. You were good today, he said. So were you. I meant what I told them, about you being an asset to the company. I know. Silence settled between us. Outside the window, clouds drifted past. When we get back, Marcus said slowly, things will be different. Different how? People will notice. Karen already suspects something. Does that bother you? No. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But it might bother you. Once people start talking, making assumptions. Let them talk. Ella, I'm serious, Marcus. I don't care what people think. You say that now. I'll say it then, too. He studied me for a long moment. Then, he reached across the space between us and took my hand. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. I've never... He stopped. You're the first thing in a very long time that I've wanted for myself. Not for the company. Not for Julian or anyone else. Just for me. Then take it, I whispered. Take this. Take me. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. I'm terrified. Of what? Of hurting you. Of failing you the way I've failed everyone else. You haven't failed me. Not yet. I leaned forward, bringing our joined hands to my lips. Then don't. After Chicago, we tried to be careful, professional at work, distant in meetings. But every evening, I found myself at his door. His apartment was in a building I couldn't afford to visit otherwise, all glass and steel and city views. But inside, it was warmer than I expected. Books on shelves, worn leather furniture, photos of landscapes I didn't recognize. It felt lived in. Real. "Wine?" he asked the first night I came over. "Please." He poured 2 glasses, then sat beside me on the couch. Not too close. Still careful. "Tell me something about yourself," he said. "Something I don't know." "Like what?" "Anything. I want to know you, not just as my employee." So I told him about my childhood, about summers at my grandmother's house, about the year I spent backpacking through Europe after college, about the small things that made me who I was. And he listened, like every word mattered. "Your turn," I said eventually. He was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." "That's a lot." "I have time." So he told me about growing up with a father who built nothing and expected everything, about working his way through business school, about meeting Julian's mother at 27 and thinking he could make it work even though he knew they were wrong for each other. "We divorced when Julian was 10, he said quietly. "I thought I was doing the right thing, giving him stability, structure. But I was working all the time, trying to build the company, and he—" Marcus stopped. "He learned the wrong lessons. About power. About getting what you want." "That's not your fault." "Isn't it?" I set my wine glass down and moved closer. "You did the best you could." "My best wasn't enough." "It was enough for me." He looked at me. Really looked at me. Then he lifted his hand and brushed his thumb across my cheek. "How are you real?" he whispered. "I'm not sure I am sometimes." He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His lips met mine, soft and searching. The kiss deepened gradually, his hand sliding into my hair, my fingers curling into his shirt. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Stay," he said against my mouth. "Are you sure?" "No." He kissed me again. "But I don't care anymore." I stayed. We didn't sleep together, not that night. But we lay on his couch, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder, while we talked until 3 a.m. About everything, about nothing, about all the years between us and whether they mattered. "They matter," he said at one point. "I'd be lying if I said they didn't." "But?" "But I think—" He paused. "I think maybe we matter more."
Marcus had spent his entire life being careful, measured, controlled, never letting himself want things he couldn't justify. And then Ella Morrissey walked into his office, and all of that careful control shattered. She was asleep now, curled against him on the couch, breathing soft and even. Her hair had come loose from its tie, spilling across his chest in dark waves. She looked young like this, vulnerable, too young for him. The thought should have made him pull away, should have made him wake her up and send her home. Instead, he tightened his arm around her and let himself have this. Just this. One night where he didn't have to be Marcus Hale, CEO and failure and guilty man. One night, where he could just be the person she saw when she looked at him. Someone worthy. Someone whole. Even if he knew it wasn't true.
Things were good for a while. We were careful at work, professional. No one suspected. But in private, we were something else entirely. He cooked dinner for me, taught me about wine, listened to me talk about my family, even though I knew it hurt him to hear about the damage Julian had caused. And slowly, he let me see the parts of himself he kept hidden, the guilt he carried, the fear that he'd failed Julian, the loneliness that had lived in him for years. I thought I was done with this, he told me one night. With feeling this way, I thought I'd settled into the life I had. And now? Now I don't know how I lived without you. It terrified him. I could see it in the way he held me, like I might disappear. I'm not going anywhere, I told him. You don't know that. Yes, I do. 3 months in, he took me to meet his mother. She was 82, sharp-eyed and elegant, living in a brownstone in Brooklyn that smelled like lavender and old books. She looked me up and down when we arrived, then smiled. Finally, she said. Someone with sense. Marcus actually laughed. Mother, oh hush, you've been miserable for years. She took my hand. I'm glad he found you, dear, even if he is too old for you. I don't think he's too old. Good, then you're brighter than he is. Over tea, she told me stories about Marcus as a child, about how serious he'd always been, how he'd worked himself to exhaustion even then. He thinks he has to save everyone, she said quietly. But he never learned to save himself. I glanced at Marcus. He was looking out the window, jaw tight. I'm working on that, I said softly. His mother smiled. Good. But nothing good lasts forever. 4 months in, Julian found out. It was Karen who told me, not directly. That wasn't her way. It was a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks after I'd started staying at Marcus's apartment regularly. I was at my desk, reviewing quarterly reports, when she appeared at my cubicle. Ella, do you have a moment? Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. Of course. She glanced around the office, then lowered her voice. Not here. Conference room C is empty. I followed her down the hallway, heart starting to pound. She closed the door behind us, didn't sit. I like you, she said quietly. You know that, right? Yes. And I meant what I said, about being happy for you and Marcus. Okay. She folded her arms. There's been talk, at the executive level. The air felt suddenly thin. What kind of talk? The kind that happens when people notice patterns, when assistants see you leaving the building together, when you're in his office with the door closed for hours, when he looks at you the way he does. I sat down slowly. Did someone complain? Not yet, but there's awareness. Questions about favoritism, about whether your promotions have been earned or... She stopped. I'm telling you this because I want you to be prepared. If it reaches the board formally, there will be an investigation. We haven't done anything wrong. I know that. You know that. But optics matter in a company like this. And there are people... She hesitated. There are people who would use this, if they wanted to. Julian. She meant Julian. Does Marcus know? I haven't told him yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Karen's expression softened. I don't want to see either of you hurt. But this situation, it's delicate, and it's not going away. I pressed my hands flat against the table. What do you think I should do? I think you should talk to him. Really talk. About what happens if this becomes public. If the board gets involved. If... She paused. If you have to choose between this job and him. The words landed like stones. I don't want to have to choose. I know, but you might. She left me sitting there, alone in the empty conference room. I went straight to Marcus's office. He was on the phone, but he took one look at my face and ended the call. What happened? I told him. Everything Karen had said. He listened without interrupting, jaw getting tighter with each word. When I finished, he stood and moved to the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders rigid. I knew this would happen eventually, he said quietly. You did? Of course I did. I'm not naive, Ella. I knew people would notice, would talk. He turned to face me. But I thought we'd have more time before it became... He gestured vaguely. This. What do we do? We don't do anything differently. We've done nothing wrong. Karen said there might be an investigation. Then there'll be an investigation. We'll handle it. But there was something in his voice, something that sounded like doubt. I moved closer to him. You're worried. I'm always worried when it comes to you. Why? Because I can't protect you from this. The admission seemed to cost him something. I can control a lot of things in this building, but I can't control perception, rumor, the way people will look at you and make assumptions. I don't care what people think. You say that now. His voice was gentle, almost sad. But when someone questions your competence in a meeting, when someone suggests you only got promoted because you're sleeping with me, when your work is scrutinized 10 times more carefully than anyone else's. He stopped. That's when it becomes real. And I can't shield you from it. I reached for his hand. I don't need you to shield me. I just need you to be honest with me. Then honestly? He looked down at our joined hands. I'm terrified. Because if this goes wrong, if the board decides we're a liability, his voice roughened. I can survive losing my reputation. I've rebuilt it before. But if you lose yours because of me, that won't happen. You don't know that. Neither do you. We stood there, hands clasped, both of us afraid of different things. Maybe we should be more careful, I said quietly. At work. In public. Maybe. He pulled me closer. But I'm not going to pretend you don't matter to me. I won't do that. Even if it puts us both at risk? Especially then. He kissed my forehead, and I felt him breathe me in, like he was trying to memorize this moment. It's going to get harder before it gets easier, he said against my hair. You know that, right? I know. And you still want this? I pulled back to look at him. At the fear and love and guilt, all tangled together in his expression. I still want this. Okay. He nodded slowly. Then we face it together. But as I left his office and walked back to my desk, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that we'd crossed an invisible line, that whatever came next, we weren't going to be able to control it. The rumors had reached the right ears now, and all we could do was wait to see what happened when they finally decided to listen. It was a Tuesday. I was at Marcus's apartment, cooking dinner while he finished a conference call in his study. We'd fallen into a rhythm: work, dinner, evenings spent talking or reading or just being together. It felt like home. Then someone knocked on the door. I frowned. Marcus wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. Julian stood in the hallway. "Hello, Ella." My stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" "Visiting my father." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "No." "That's rude, especially since you seem to have made yourself comfortable in his home." I kept my hand on the door. "Leave, Julian." "Does Dad know you're here? Or are you still playing whatever game you're playing?" "I'm not playing a game." "No?" He leaned against the doorframe. "Then what do you call seducing my father? Revenge? Justice?" "I'm not—" "Oh, please." His voice turned sharp. "You think I don't know what's happening? You think people don't talk? Half the office knows you're sleeping with him." Heat flooded my face. "That's none of your business. It is when it affects my family, when it makes my father look like a fool. Your father is not a fool. He is if he thinks you actually care about him. You're using him, Ella. Just like I used you. At least I'm honest about it." Something cold settled in my chest. "Get out." "Gladly." He pushed off the doorframe. "But you should know, when this falls apart, and it will, he's going to blame himself. He's going to think he failed you, just like he thinks he failed everyone else. Julian, he's good at guilt, at carrying things he can't fix. So go ahead, keep playing this part. But when he breaks, it'll be on you." He left before I could respond. I stood in the doorway, shaking, until Marcus's voice called from the study. "Ella? Who was at the door?" I closed the door slowly. "No one. Just a delivery." I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Because Julian was right about one thing. Marcus would blame himself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Marcus, listening to him breathe, and thought about everything Julian had said. Was I using him? No. I knew that much. I cared about him, more than I'd cared about anyone. But was I hurting him? The question settled in my chest like a stone. In the morning, Marcus woke to find me already dressed. "You're up early," he said, voice rough with sleep. "I have an early meeting. I should go." He sat up, studying me. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "Ella." "I have to go, Marcus. I'll see you at work." I left before he could ask more questions. Over the next week, I pulled away. Not completely, but enough that he noticed. "You're distant," he said one evening in his office. "Did something happen?" "No, I'm just tired." That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "All right. But when you're ready to talk, I'm here." I finally broke on Friday. I went to his apartment after work, let myself in with the key he'd given me weeks ago. He was in the kitchen, pouring wine. "Hey." He smiled when he saw me. "I was hoping you'd come by." "We need to talk." The smile faded. That's never a good start. "Julian came here. Last week." Marcus went very still. "When?" "Tuesday, when you were on your call." "What did he say?" I told him. Everything. The accusations, the warning, the guilt Julian had weaponized. When I finished, Marcus set his wine glass down with careful control. "He's trying to manipulate you," he said quietly. "I know." "Then why are you pulling away?" "Because he's not wrong." My voice broke. "About the guilt. About how you'll blame yourself if this doesn't work." "That's my choice to make." "But it's not fair. You've spent years carrying guilt that isn't yours, and now I'm adding to it." "Ella, people are talking, Marcus. Julian's right about that. They're saying I'm using you, that you're—" I couldn't finish. "That I'm what? Too old? Pathetic?" He moved closer. "I don't care what they say." "But I do. Because they're talking about you, making you look like a man in love." He cupped my face in his hands. "Because that's what I am. I love you, Ella, and I don't give a damn what Julian or anyone else thinks about it." The words hit me like a physical force. "You what?" "I love you." He said it again, slower. "I've been in love with you for months. Since that night on the terrace, maybe. Or before. I don't know. But I know I'm not going to let Julian's poison ruin this." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I love you too," I whispered. "But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of hurting you. Of being another thing you feel guilty about." "Ella." He kissed my forehead. "You're not a burden. You're not something I have to fix. You're—" His voice roughened. "You're the first good thing I've chosen for myself in 20 years, and I will not let Julian take that away." "What if he tries?" "Then we deal with it. Together." I looked up at him, at the certainty in his eyes, the love. "Together," I repeated. "Together." He kissed me then, soft and sure, and for the first time in a week, I let myself believe it might actually be okay. After that night, we stopped hiding. Not recklessly, but we stopped pretending. Karen noticed first. "So," she said one morning, "are we acknowledging the obvious, or are we still pretending?" I froze. "I don't relax," she smiled. "I'm happy for you, both of you. He's been alone too long." "You're not concerned? About the optics?" "About a consenting adult dating another consenting adult? No." She paused. "Though if Julian makes trouble, let me know. I've been wanting to send him to the Siberia office for years." I laughed, despite myself. "There's a Siberia office?" "There could be." The next month was the best of my life. Work was challenging, fulfilling. Marcus included me in everything: strategy meetings, client dinners, major decisions. He trusted me, respected my opinion. And outside of work, we were building something real. He met my mother, It was terrifying. She'd refused his attempts to make amends years ago, and I didn't know how she'd react to seeing him again, to knowing I'd chosen him. We met at a cafe she loved, neutral territory. She arrived 5 minutes late, elegant in gray wool, eyes sharp. Marcus stood immediately. "Mrs. Morrissey, thank you for agreeing to meet." She looked at him for a long moment, then at me. "You're serious about this?" she asked. "Yes." "He destroyed our family, Ella." "Julian destroyed our family. Marcus tried to fix it. You refused." "Because he should have known better. He should have seen what Julian was." "You're right." Marcus's voice was quiet. "I should have, and I will regret that failure for the rest of my life. But I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking that you don't punish Ella for my mistakes." My mother was quiet for a long time. Then she sat down. "Tell me," she said, "what your intentions are toward my daughter." "To love her, to protect her, to be worthy of the chance she's given me." "And if you fail?" "Then I'll live with that failure too. But I won't fail by not trying." My mother studied him. Then she looked at me. "You love him?" "Yes. Even knowing everything he's done." "Everything Julian did," I corrected gently. "And yes, even then." She sighed. "You always were stubborn." "I learned from the best." Something almost like a smile touched her lips. Then she turned back to Marcus. "Hurt her, and I'll make your life a living hell." "I believe you." "Good." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. 6 months after that first kiss in Chicago, Marcus asked me to move in with him. We were on his couch, my head on his shoulder, watching rain streak the windows. "I want you here," he said quietly. "Not just visiting. Here." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." So I moved in. Slowly, one box at a time. He made space for me. In his closet, in his life. And piece by piece, we built something that felt like forever. But Julian wasn't done. 8 months in, he filed a formal complaint with the board. "Conflict of interest," he claimed. "Inappropriate workplace relationship. Favoritism." Marcus came home the night he received the notice, looking exhausted. "They're calling a hearing," he said. "Next week." I felt cold. "What does that mean?" "It means Julian's trying to force me out. Or you. Maybe both of us." "This is my fault." "No." He pulled me into his arms. "This is Julian being Julian, trying to control things he can't have." "What do we do?" "We fight." The hearing was brutal. Julian presented emails, photos of us leaving the building together, testimony from employees who'd noticed the change in how Marcus treated me. It all sounded damning. Until Marcus spoke. "Everything my son said is true," he began. "I am in a relationship with Ella Morrissey. She works for me. I have promoted her based on merit. But yes, I care about her success." The board members exchanged glances. "However," Marcus continued, "I'd like to submit evidence that Julian's complaint is not about protecting company integrity. It's about revenge." He pulled out a folder. "These are the original documents from the Sutherland investigation 6 years ago. The ones Julian fabricated to destroy the Morrissey family. I've had them independently analyzed. They're fraudulent. Julian went pale. I've also compiled evidence of Julian's ongoing harassment of Ms. Morrissey, including threats made in this building, witness testimony, and security footage. He looked at Julian directly. You're not trying to protect this company. You're trying to hurt the people I care about because I finally chose someone over you. Silence filled the room. I'm prepared to resign, Marcus said quietly, if that's what it takes to resolve this. But Ella stays. She's earned her place here through her own skill, and I won't let your vendetta destroy her career the way it destroyed her family's. The board chair cleared her throat. Mr. Hale, that won't be necessary. She turned to Julian. Mr. Julian Hale, effective immediately, you are terminated from Hale Industries. Security will escort you from the building. If you contest this decision, we will pursue legal action for fraud and harassment. Julian's face went red. You can't. We can. And we are. He looked at Marcus. You're choosing her over your own son. I'm choosing what's right. Marcus's voice was steady. Something I should have done years ago. Julian left without another word. After the hearing, Marcus took my hand. Are you okay? He asked quietly. I should be asking you that. I'm fine. He's your son, Marcus. He's a man who hurt you, who hurt your family, who's been trying to hurt us for months. He squeezed my hand. I've made a lot of mistakes as a father, but choosing you, that's not one of them. We went home, ordered takeout, sat on the couch in silence for a while. Do you regret it? I asked eventually. Which part? Any of it. He turned to look at me. No, not a single moment. Not the guilt, not the fear, not the fight. Because all of it led me here. To you. I kissed him, slow and deep and full of everything I felt. I love you, I whispered against his mouth. I love you too. 1 year later. We're standing on the terrace at Meridian, the place where everything changed. The city glitters below us, alive and beautiful. Marcus's arms are around me, chin resting on my shoulder. Do you ever regret it? He asks quietly. Choosing me? Never. Not even when people stare? When they whisper? Let them whisper. I turn in his arms. I know the truth. And what's that? That you're the best man I know. That you've carried guilt that wasn't yours for years. That you chose me even when it cost you everything. It didn't cost me everything. His hands frame my face. It gave me everything. He kisses me, soft and sure. And I know, without question, that this is where I'm meant to be. Not despite the past, not in spite of it, but because of it. Because sometimes, the weight of what we carry makes us strong enough to hold something beautiful. And Marcus Hale, for all his guilt and fear and doubt, has held me with a strength I never knew I needed. Marry me, he says suddenly. I pull back to look at him. What? Marry me. He says it again, steady and certain. I know it's fast. I know people will say, yes. He stops. Yes? Yes! I laugh, tears in my eyes. Yes, Marcus. Of course, yes! He kisses me again, deeper this time, and I taste the future in it. A future we built together. Out of ashes, out of guilt, out of all the broken pieces of our pasts. A future that's finally, beautifully, ours.